Here's your host for Journey to Center on Empower Radio, Dr. Tammi Baliszewski.
Hello, my friends. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to hang out with us here on Empower Radio and Journey to Center. This is going to be a good one. So I have a question for you. What is the relationship between your emotions and your body? Is there a relationship between them? Well, if you've listened to my show before, you probably know I'm a big fan of Louise Hay, and I love her book, You Can Heal Your Life. She teaches about the emotional reasons behind physical challenges or disease. Her work has been very helpful in my life and in addressing some of my own issues. However, there's things that happen to us physically, and we just can't figure out what to do about it by ourselves. A couple of years ago, I had a cold that just would not go away. After about 3 or 4 months, I just couldn't take it anymore. I went to a medical doctor, and they gave me a prescription for antibiotics, which I hesitated to take because I know they don't really help with viral infections. So a friend of mine told me about a local practitioner here in Boise, Idaho, named Jennifer Games, who practiced a modality called BodyTalk. She told me to see her before I filled that prescription. And I thought, well, I don't have anything to lose, so I went to see her. She took my history and then invited me to relax on a massage table. And she did this really gentle process. She lifted my wrist and asked me questions quietly, and I think I might have taken a little nap. At the end of the session, she informed me that my cold had something to do with a family member and a belief system. And then she told me what I needed to do to release it or heal it, which was just essentially give myself permission to heal. She told me I would be better by the next day, and I was. I didn't have to take the antibiotics. I was absolutely astonished. In fact, I haven't had a cold since then, and I used to get them about 3 or 4 times a year. So I've been back to Jennifer for several appointments since then, and she's helped me get rid of a rash I had for 6 months. She helped me heal a bunion. She helped me with some arthritis, assisted me with a digestive issue and my sleep challenges and my fatigue. It's just really interesting how she does what she does. And I brought my husband to her because he had an issue with his knee that he thought he was going to have surgery for. And that was healed as well. Look, I don't know how she does what she does. I am just grateful to have found her. So today we're going to be talking about what BodyTalk is and how you might be able to find a practitioner in your area. And if it calls to you, maybe even learn about this yourself. So I'm honored and excited and thrilled to be talking to Dr. John Veltheim, who's actually the creator of this amazing modality, the BodyTalk system. It is a consciousness-based holistic therapy which utilizes the body's innate healing ability to address health challenges and maintain good health. BodyTalk was first developed in the 1990s, and now the International BodyTalk Association has provided consciousness-based healthcare training to more than 10,000 people worldwide. Dr. Veltheim is a chiropractor, traditional acupuncturist, philosopher, Reiki master, lecturer, and teacher. Originally from Australia, Dr. Veltheim ran a very successful clinic in Brisbane for 15 years. He is was also the principal of the Brisbane College of Acupuncture and Natural Therapies for 5 years. His extensive postgraduate studies include applied kinesiology, bioenergetic psychology, osteopathy, sports medicine, counseling, and comparative philosophy and theology. So, Dr. John Veltheim, I'm so excited to be connecting with you today.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
I am blown away by this modality, and I cannot wait to really get into this. But let's just start with the basics. What exactly is BodyTalk?
Well, for a start, it has evolved from being a modality or a series of techniques into a profession to the point now that we're in the process this year of going into universities in Europe and North America and Australia and China and so on as a degree course. And interesting, it's going to be a degree of science course because although BodyTalk is working with energy and things like that, it is in fact a science because when you really get down to it, everything is made of energy and everything is just consciousness and in a form of energy. And as a result, if you know how to work with this, and of course my background prior to this was Chinese medicine and bioenergetics and so on, and plus my own studies, I just simply worked out that in the majority of cases, if you can rebalance all the energy circuits at all the right levels, the body is capable of healing itself. And when I say consciousness-based, another word I could put there is the intuitive-based. And that is, with BodyTalk, we cover a great deal of territory. In other words, there are specialists in BodyTalk in gynecology, neurology, chiropractic, nursing, there are general practitioners, etc. So we're virtually into every field of healthcare and medicine, where the techniques I've developed can be utilized and work in conjunction with other systems, including medical systems. Mm-hmm. The basic difference is that we don't do anything as far as give herbs or needles or drugs or anything like that. We utilize the body's own healing ability. And further than that, I've developed a system whereby we can actually ask the innate wisdom of the body what to do. So we don't diagnose per se. We're more interested in finding out what the body wants to know. And the premise behind this is that there is an innate wisdom. And this is something that's readily acceptable even in science now, because we know very well that the body can heal itself when we get cuts and we get bruises and all the different things that are going on. And the body's got to know how to do that. And it's not just some electrical circuit. There is a wisdom behind all this. And the idea is to be able to intuitively tap into this wisdom by learning techniques to make your ability to do this accurate. And as a result, by asking the right questions in the right sequencing, which is the BodyTalk protocol, we can establish what we need to correct within the body in order for the body to be able to heal itself.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant, and it seems a little bit mysterious and magical. I like how you talk about, just connecting with the body's innate wisdom, that there is a consciousness that does know the answers if you just ask the right questions. So you were an acupuncturist and chiropractor, and you were an expert in many modalities. What led you to uncovering or discovering this? I would like to know a little bit about how you came about coming upon this modality.
Out of necessity, actually. I had run an extremely busy clinic. I had easily the biggest clinic in Australia, and I was also running a college and everything like that for 17 years. And I finally became very ill myself because I was burning the candle at both ends. Mm-hmm. And I ended up with throat cancer, having to have that removed, and then ended up in hospital with Epstein-Barr that was so serious it had destroyed 90% of my liver. And the doctors gave me 2 to 3 days to live.
Oh, my goodness.
So at that stage, I sort of lay there and decided, well, I think I need a change of lifestyle.
Wow. And you were in the healthcare profession. This is interesting. Yeah, but you were probably spreading yourself way too thin.
I was working from 7 in the morning to 11 at night, usually 6 days a week.
Your body was saying, no more of that. You're at the end of your rope. Mm-hmm. So
I checked myself out of hospital, and I treated myself at that stage with Chinese herbs, meditation. I've been a meditator since I was 8, and some acupuncture. And I got to the point where I got out of the acute phase and back into a chronic phase, which means I was still sick but not dying. And my liver started to regenerate. And then I found I couldn't find a cure for this chronic stage. And I traveled the world trying all different things. And then I finally decided I had to work it out for myself. Mm-hmm. And I got clues from a practitioner who was a former student of mine in New Zealand, an osteopath, of some work she was doing that was a variation on applied kinesiology, which I had lectured in the past. And it gave me the clues I wanted. And from there, I found I treated myself and got better. Actually, she treated me, but using the technique. And I got better in 3 days. And at this stage, I was already very busy because I had given up practice and I was traveling the world teaching other techniques that I had developed called Mindscape, which enables you to work with your intuition and various forms of psychology, etc. And reluctantly, I decided I needed to go back into healthcare. I'd sworn I would never do that again.
Yeah, it almost killed you. Almost took you out.
Well, different. Because this was too important, because we found it worked very well on all forms of chronic viruses and bacteria and parasites, and also worked on acute ones. And from that, it just kept evolving. That was back in 94. And it just kept evolving until now. It's, as I said, if you put the whole program together, it's a full university degree course. And it's become a very comprehensive system of healthcare that's still based on the same premise that we're not practitioners, in BodyTalk, we're facilitators. We're there to help the body heal itself. And we just use the right cues, the right questions, and the appropriate techniques to facilitate that. So it takes the ego away. It's really about, the body is much smarter than our brains.
Yeah, isn't it true? So it seems to me what's happening, and maybe you can explain this or describe this better, but you as the facilitator of the BodyTalk you're essentially dialoguing with maybe the higher aspect of your client. Maybe, just going to a higher realm, getting the direct information from that aspect of ourselves and translating, if you will, that information. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're doing it at different levels. In the beginning of BodyTalk, when you first start learning it, we do it very simply by basically feedback from the body, as in yes and no answers, a bit like applied kinesiology.
Yes.
And the difference is our feedback is still more intuitive because we can do it on people who are asleep or on animals and even on plants. Because BodyTalk works just as well on animals and plants as it does on humans. And but as you get more advanced, I have techniques that are designed to train and discipline the mind so that you can get the focus to be able to tune in at a much higher level. And then you're not having to get the feedback. Once you put your hand on the patient, the information just streams to you, basically, either visually or auditory, using any of the subtle senses. And once the body is then telling you what to do, you can ascribe the right formulas, as it were, to bring about correction. And the streaming is accurate. If you look at just a quick example, was a 36-year-old psychologist I had who had a very, very enlarged fibroid on the uterus to the point that it was not life-threatening and it wasn't cancerous, but it was growing very rapidly, and she looked 5 months pregnant. And she was booked in 3 weeks' time for surgery. She came to me to help her stress and blood pressure and everything, but the body said, no, I've got to address the fibroid. And I was able to ask the body, and I clearly got that the cause of this started when she was 18 years of age. And that was her first year at university. And I said, this is to do with a very nasty relationship. And she said, well, I didn't have a boyfriend then. I just studied. And I don't remember anything. So intuitively, I was told, well, 21st of September, and then another date about 12 weeks later. 2 dates. No, don't remember them. And so I went into it, and then I did a formula just to try and open up her subconscious. And then it finally came that the first date was the day she was raped, and the second date was the day she had an abortion because of the rape. And once she was told it, the memory came flooding back, and she remembered it vividly. But she had blocked it out of her mind by the time she was about 23, 24, apparently, from mother. But once I knew that, and she knew that, I then addressed the fibroid. And then by the time she went up for surgery in 3 weeks' time, I told her to go back to the gynecologist the day before first, which she did. He examined her, and the uterus was totally healthy, totally normal.
Yeah, that's mind-boggling.
So, you get the information correct, they get to understand it, you get the body to address it, it'll address it. And in 3 weeks, it's completely dissolved a fibroid that big.
Wow. And I might be skeptical, except for I've experienced this. I mean, it's miraculous what can happen. I had a rash that I went to dermatologists for, that I was bleeding. I was scratching myself so hard, and one appointment with Jennifer, and she's like, well, you need some essential fatty acids. Give yourself permission to heal. It should be cleared up in a couple weeks. And it was. I mean, I'm just like, how does this happen? This is amazing. So I have a partial list here of some of the things that BodyTalk has helped people get rid of or cure or release. And there maybe is more. So like you said, tumors, there's allergies, arthritis, asthma, birth defects, diseases, blood diseases, breathing issues, cancer, heart problems, depression, anxiety, diabetes, food intolerances. That's a huge one. Insomnia. It's helped me with that. Maternity, mental illness, migraines, multiple sclerosis, skeletal issues, nightmares, parasites, physical injuries, psychological disorders, relationship issues, reproductive disorders, scars. How does it help with scars? How's that possible?
Yeah, well, many times scars don't heal correctly. For example, you could have a hysterectomy scar or a cesarean scar.
Right,
that's
sure.
inflamed. and it blocks the meridian energy flowing up the body and can cause fatigue and tiredness, and in women particularly, who usually have cesarean and hysterectomy scars, it can limit their digestion, cause their breasts to start drooping, their face to start drooping because there's energy block. And when we treat the scar actually gets itchy for a while, and then the redness fades and the scarring fades, and it goes down to a thin line, and then all the energy flows. It takes a few weeks, but it's very effective. But yeah, that list can go on. The key element is it's not, BodyTalk isn't the be all and end all. There are situations where the body is in crisis, and it's going to need surgery, and it's going to need drugs, or it's going to need other therapies. But the key element of BodyTalk is, yes, it can address virtually anything you name, provided the patient, is not in crisis. And if they are, we now have a lot of surgeons and specialists who have a nurse trained in BodyTalk, so that they get BodyTalk before and after the surgery, and they've found that their recovery is far quicker, and their ability to, get back to normal life is greatly enhanced. So in that case, we're using BodyTalk as is complementary to the conventional medical system.
Yes,
and
it sounds like, they work well together. It's like apples and oranges, they're not in competition. There is a time and a place for allopathic or Western medicine, and clearly there's a time and a place for this type of modality or other holistic modalities.
Yeah,
so,
yes. There's very important need for people to get guidance in nutrition and also in psychology. And we're very happy to work with that as well. Yeah.
That's so fascinating. I'm blown away by this. So it is like maybe a cousin of applied kinesiology. I know when I worked with Jennifer, she just had me lay on a table, and nice music is very gentle, and she just kind of lifted my wrist. It wasn't like I had to hold my hand up or arm up like you do with a lot of times with kinesiology. I was able to just kind of relax. I think I dozed off.
Yes, it doesn't matter if you're awake or asleep. Said we treat people asleep and babies and children or people in comas, and the body will still respond. But it does look like kinesiology, and of course, I have a strong kinesiology background. I used to teach applied kinesiology, so I've had a strong background in it. But it is different, and as I said, it's far more encompassing. It's got a much wider range. One of the things, of course, that you didn't mention there that I consider more important with BodyTalk is that one is we use it a lot in top athletes and top sports people to enhance or improve their performance, because again, if their body is functioning properly and all the synapses are working properly in the communication, they will perform better. And we have BodyTalk, because I've got one of my colleagues, he's got the names of about 100 clients of his that are household names in sports. The top tennis players, the top golfers, the top footballers, and and so on. And the other aspect that we have a lot of people who study BodyTalk have no intention of practicing it, but they're doing it as a form of personal growth, because the techniques that during the courses that you learn, there's a whole series of courses, you start to learn much greater understanding of how the body works, how the mind and brain relate to one another. And there's a great deal of philosophy behind it. In fact, a large section of the course was designed by my partner, Esther Veltheim, who is a brilliant Advaita Vedanta philosopher and has written several books on the subject. And we incorporate aspects of understanding belief systems and understanding why we get sick. And that understanding is not just good for you to treat other people, it's good in your own personal life. In other words, how to empower yourself. It's like a broader version of what Louise Hay does.
Yes.
She focuses on emotions. We go a lot deeper into the deep existential belief systems that we have, and in particular, the types of emotional traumas we have in fetal life, which we found, and Dr. Bruce Lipton, who's a good friend of mine, we talked about it, and he maintains that the seed, and I agree with him, we both found this independently, that the seed of so many of the more major things that happen in our life actually start in the 9 months of fetal life by traumas external traumas from the mother and the father. A lot of people don't realize that the nervous system in the brain of a fetus is more profoundly influenced by the father than the mother. And anything the father's going through, depending on the time of the fetal life, whether it be at 3 months or 6 months, will affect the brain's development. And so if you have mental disorders, it's your dad you got to blame for, not your mum.
All right, I'm going to have to make a phone call when we get off the phone here, John. You bring up so many good points here. You answered several of my questions, although I want to kind of go into them a little bit deeper here. You brought up something I wanted to ask you in regards to BodyTalk being able to support a person not only if they're challenged with their physical health, but perhaps to take things to a higher level as far as vibrant, optimal health goes. Because like right now, I feel really good, you know, but is there anything I can do to just take it to the next level? So you're saying a BodyTalk practitioner could maybe support me in that?
Yes, a BodyTalk practitioner. Plus, I've designed another course designed for lay people to use, and certain techniques that we use. Sorry, I've got a helicopter going over the top.
That happens.
For example, there's a technique that we actually teach the public a lot and encourage the public to learn called the cortices technique. And it's just a very simple technique that you do, takes about less than a minute. And what it does is it helps to balance the hemispheres of the brain and neutralize the effect of stress. Because, you know, probably our biggest issue and the number one cause of disease in society, and medicine will agree with this as well as us, is that it's stress. Because stress is the key trigger that then sets off all the other different factors, the inflammation in the body, and so on. And the stress is, if you look at the brain as an electrical circuit, when you're under stress, it basically blows fuses in the electrical circuit. And this can be seen in various forms of scanning of the brain. And this technique basically mends those fuses or switches the fuses back. So you repair the electrical circuit. And in doing so, you reduce the stress. And by doing it as a regular thing, you know, virtually on a daily basis, when we do it on children, it's really profound because we suddenly find they go from underachievers to, you know, A-grade students, and their behavior pattern and their stress disorders, your attention deficit disorder and things like that go away because most of those are just stress build-ups, you know, that cause malfunction. So it becomes a self-help program. Plus, when there is reduced stress in it, whatever, say, spiritual practice like meditation you do is going to work a lot better as well. So we have that, and I've combined it with some other techniques that we teach in a day to the public that they can use on themselves and their family, and they'll address the simple issues, you know, like 60% of the problems that come up from a week-to-week basis. That little Johnny comes down with a virus, you do this simple technique, and the virus is gone the next day, and so on. Because I'm very big on empowering people to help themselves. And I notice your name is Empower Radio.
Yes,
well,
absolutely.
I'm very, very much about empowering people to help themselves and their own family. I think we've got to take that power back. And then, so we only have to go to practitioners for the serious stuff. And that's what I'm saying.
Agree. Yes.
And I've got a trust or a foundation that sponsors people to do this. We have instructors going into all the different countries like India, Africa, South America, and that to the indigenous people. And we're teaching it to the indigenous people, you know, say some of the elders in the indigenous tribe, that they're now using it within the tribe. And local governments are amazed because the need for local doctors, which is very expensive for them, has dropped off about 80%.
Wow. Because
they're taking care of 80% of their problems. So,
yeah, I can see where it would be very effective. That's amazing. I'm really excited to hear that. You're really taking this to the next level in some remarkable ways.
It is exciting. I'm in Brazil. I'm in Brazil at the moment. One of the reasons is I'm working with the military, of all things, because the military hospitals in Brazil have all adopted my system in their hospitals, and they use it as first line of treating, and they only use surgery and drugs as the last resort. And in the meantime, they've done a study on they've got 47 million indigenous people living as they lived 1,000 years ago here in the jungles of Brazil. It's 47 million. It's quite incredible. And when the health department has tried to treat them with drugs and things like that, it kills them. They're so sensitive.
Yeah, the chemicals.
And, so they experimented, and they found that they could take homeopathy if they used local herbs and they could take BodyTalk. In fact, they thrived on BodyTalk. So now the military has been authorized by the Brazilian government to take charge of the indigenous people and train their personnel in this Access BodyTalk so that we can use that as the main healing system to solve the crisis that's going on.
So fantastic. Yeah, and it is. It's really about empowering people, giving them the power, not handing it away for somebody else to fix them. I think that's so amazing. It's really beautiful. That's why I love this radio show. I get to talk to people like you. This is awesome. So I'm really looking forward to getting into some more of this. I have a lot of questions about, I'm interested. Can I take this? I'm a PhD, but I'm not a chiropractor or acupuncturist. You mentioned people being able to take this course. How would they find out about that? Where would they go? What do they do?
Well, we have a website. We've got, 300 instructors teaching all over the world. And on our website, just BodyTalk, bodytalksystem.com. But if they just Google BodyTalk, they'll have no trouble finding it. And on the website, we have a list of all the different courses. There's, as I said, BodyTalk Access is for anybody. In fact, we have children do that course. In fact, we find it quite funny because when you go into these indigenous tribes, you have some of the elected, they elect 6 or 7 people to learn it, but they bring their kids. And by the end of the we do a 2-day course, the kids know it better than the adults. And they end up doing most of the treating. But for people then, if you're a professional and you want to learn it as part of your profession, to help your profession, we've got courses like that. And we also are catering now where lay people who want to learn it can do it as a straight course. And they can learn to become professional because we have the access now to all the various courses that they need, including auxiliary medical courses like anatomy and physiology, etc., to enable people to do it primarily part-time, sort of in modular form, weekends and things like that, and online. And we're teaching people in currently, I think it's 47 countries in 13 languages. And so anyone can do it.
Yeah, you're going international in a big way, aren't you?
Yes, we are. In fact, we're getting constantly invited to everywhere. But we have to stem it because every time you move into a new country and a new language, it's a big, big job. It's all the textbooks have got to be translated and everything.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't have considered that. Yeah. That would be a big job. Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of really great people on your side, that a lot of people are really excited about this this healing modality, and you probably have an army of healers that are part of this process and supporting you with this. I hope so anyway.
I have, actually. I'm at a stage now that I don't even run the organization or anything like that. I have a very good team running it, and even the development of new courses. So, because I'm not an expert in all fields, so we have, for example, one of the world's top geneticists who's doing work in epigenetics with BodyTalk, and basically, we're getting such good results now with genetic diseases and epigenetic diseases that the way it's shaping up, within 5 years, BodyTalk will probably be the go-to system for genetic diseases. And because we're having the current medical approach doesn't have a way of addressing them, because when you have what we call an epigenetic problem, it's these little markers on the DNA that are causing the problem. And the medical approach has to be either surgery or drugs, and neither of those things actually will treat those properly. Whereas our system can do that, and hence we can reverse something, like 60% of the genetic diseases at the moment. We're able to treat it successfully.
Wow. Yeah. I think I like this saying, God throws pebbles, stones, bricks, and then you get a brick wall. And it seems like a lot of times with the allopathic model, it's not until the brick wall is coming down that they can do anything, like do the surgery or give you the chemo or the drugs or the radiation or whatever. So this is fascinating. I'm so honored to be talking to you about this. It's such an incredible system, and I'm so honored to have stumbled on it and be connecting with you. So we're going to go to break, and when we come back, Dr. Veltheim is going to talk to us about our bodies. Is your body trying to tell you something? Does it have something it wants to say? We're going to find out more about this after the break. So hang on. We'll be right back with Dr. John Veltheim. Hello, my friends. Thanks for hanging out with us today here on Journey to Center and Empower Radio. I am talking to Dr. John Veltheim, the man who developed the consciousness-based healing modality called BodyTalk. And I'm incredibly grateful that you discovered this. I was actually told by a podiatrist that I was going to have surgery for my bunion. And I was a little depressed about that. And I went and saw Jennifer and had some BodyTalk about it. And it's like gone. How does that happen? That's weird, isn't it? That's weird. It's a miracle.
What body can do.
I still don't know what the root cause of it was, but it's gone. I'm just grateful. It doesn't hurt anymore. My arthritis is gone. You're blowing my mind here, John.
Well, yeah, I mean, part of the training in BodyTalk is for instructors to learn more about the way the body is talking and the way the body communicates. And this is good for anybody to learn, actually, and why a lot of people study it. A little bit like Louise Hay, and I go a little bit further because of my bioenergetic and Chinese medicine background, which both correspond. But, if you look at it, say if we see the ankle, for example, the ankle is controlled on the outside by primarily the gallbladder meridian, and on the inside by what we call the spleen meridian. Now, the gallbladder meridian, it links into the brain, the parts of the brain where we make decisions. And whereas the spleen meridian, it links to the brain where we think and worry about things, right? So if you're going through a major thing in your life where you've got to make a decision, whether it's to get married or buy a car or whatever, and you're thinking about it and worrying about it and thinking and worrying and not getting anywhere with it, if that keeps going, your body's going to force you into a decision. Say it's, should I marry her, should I not marry her, and so on. Then if that gets bad enough, you will sprain your ankle. You will literally be an ankle waiting to happen, and you'll sprain the ankle. The ankle will swell up, and you'll be in the hospital, and the decision will be made. Of course I'll marry her. I need someone to look after me, But the thing is, you won't ever see a sprained ankle where there isn't a history of worrying about a decision. And I know in Australia we had a period of 6 weeks in the middle of the football season where all the footballers during that time got offers for other clubs, which often meant moving interstate and things like that. So during that 6 weeks, they were constantly in worrying and upset about whether they should do it. And that was the week, those 6 weeks, 6 games, were the games where 90% of all sprained ankles occurred. And in fact, the coaches knew it so well that when the guy was hauled off the field, they didn't ask him how it was his ankle. They'd say, what team and how much?
Oh, my gosh.
The sprained ankle meant that they were worrying about an offer.
That's fascinating.
So with all the sports and, all daily activity, the way you cut yourself and nick yourself, and, people will kick their toe, but they always kick the second toe all the time rather than the first. And the second toe is about the stomach. And there's something that they can't, in their life, they can't stomach, they can't digest, they can't assimilate, and so on. So you can see this constantly. I remember another one, the hamstrings. And this was a famous footballer in Australia. He played for Australia and was brilliant. But one day he pulled a hamstring and it crippled him. And he couldn't get better after 18 months. Every time he went out in the field, by half time, they had to take him off the field. So he was losing his place in the team. And they had tried everything locally, all the different treatments. And they finally sent him to me. Now, the hamstring has to do with the colon. It's about letting go, release. The bowel is how you let life go, let it flow. And your resistance to things like that. And so I got talking to him. Now, it turns out he had an Italian background, and he had this problem had started some 2 years earlier. And the incident the week before it started was he found out that his father, who was retired, used to work for the mafia in Italy as a hitman, actually.
Ooh,
and he was a guy who was very, very religious himself and was absolutely dumbfounded and had a major argument and basically said to his father, I will never forgive you. And he goes out in the field a week later, and of course his hamstring gives out. And there was no amount of treatment. I had to get him and his father to do a certain resolution. And when I got them to resolve and I treated the energy buildup and the tension in his colon, his hamstring completely repaired. I didn't have to touch his hamstring. I didn't go near it. And he continued to play for 4 more years.
That's so fascinating. So I have a question for you, John. Anytime we have like a physical, say accident or challenge, or we get some sort of like cold or bug or virus, is there always an underlying component? Is there always an emotional reason for it? Is sometimes just a cold just a cold?
That's a lot of area of grey. There's usually always a reason, but not necessarily a reason you need to work out.
Right, I believe that. Yeah.
That the symptom is actually working it out. Okay, but sometimes you have some pressure, and you get a problem that actually forces you to work it out, as it were.
Yes.
And
yes.
You might you could injure yourself, and you can't then do what you're going to do, and then while you're sitting there not being able to do it, you will then go through the process of realizing you didn't want to do that in the first place, and you're only doing it as a should rather than what you should have.
Yeah, shooting on ourselves usually isn't a good thing.
It becomes fairly obvious to you, especially if you know that that's the case. When the conditions are more serious, yes, it's good to know what it is and good to be able to look at the underlying causes, but it's not a cause, it's a series of causes, events. And that's why in BodyTalk we have to look at what we call active memory, and that is memories that are still charged and still affecting us. And you need to address those, whether they be from environmental influences, from our own self-sabotage, or and things like that. And when you get that aha experience, then changes are made.
Yes. Yeah, it feels like, things are sometimes unraveled from the bottom up. It's like you don't have to focus on working with the symptom. If you go to the deeper cause, you address that. It's like the rash goes away, the bunion goes away, the arthritis goes away, without having to focus on that. Mm-hmm.
I think a key element, I teach a course to the public called Finding Health, and that anyone can attend, where I discuss a lot of this. I discuss the nature of the mind and how it all works and philosophy, etc. But in particular, I cover a principle of what we call the stages of growth, and that is that there is a stage of the 2 tracks, as it were, in manifestation. One is the accumulation of information, and the second is the turning of that information into wisdom. Because ultimately, what we want in life is not really happiness, is that we want to have meaning. If you really get down to it, people want meaning in their life and wisdom. And in all processes, even in physiology and biochemistry, everything occurs through what we call a catalyst. In other words, it's a catalyst for all biochemical activities, etc. And when that activity occurs, that you've gone from 2 simple components into a more complex one. In other words, a wiser one, a more capable one. Mm-hmm. And that actually causes the release of what we call biophotons, which is a major source of our energy. Now, another word for a catalyst is a conflict, right? Mm-hmm. When we look at conflict, people think they've got to avoid conflict. But in fact, conflict is a natural part of the process, because conflict, whether it be conflict as in an argument with your husband or your kids or whatever, your work, or disease, all disease is a form of conflict that is acting as a catalyst to turn certain information into wisdom. Now, if it is treated correctly by getting an aha shift, which is the goal of BodyTalk, then what happens is you not only get that aha paradigm shift, that's why I've got this ulcer and that's what's happening. Okay, I understand it now. Then you'll get rapid healing, and you also get a massive burst of energy because you get this release of biophotons, the actual deeper understanding that I teach in the course, that's like a burst of light energy in your system. So hence you're more enlightened or more wise. And that's one of the processes of life. Now, the danger is if you don't get the aha, you just get first aid, a Band-Aid, then conflict's going to come back in different forms all the time. You're just going to keep repeating it until you learn from it. And in fact, I actually take a bold move in my classes, because I actually say that when you're in conflict, you're in your maximum state of health. And the bigger the conflict, the more healthy you are, because that means you are ready to go into a greater jump in wisdom and growth, right? And hence, the process of solving the conflict is the most important health stage of your body. And so that if you're living for a period of time without any conflicts at all, then that's not what I would call health. That means you're pretty redundant. You're not really contributing to manifestation.
Yeah, it sounds like it could be a little bit boring. And yeah, I've been having this conversation lately, like chaos and conflict is really an opportunity and a gift. And it's like being able to go through the glass ceiling to the next level. And I like how you're putting this because, again, it's not being a victim, not being a victim of the disease or the challenge, but looking at it as an opportunity, taking that learning orientation. What is the opportunity? What is the learning here? And how do we take things to the next level? So I think that's a really wonderful way to look at things, a wonderful approach.
And you can look at it philosophically, but I actually have given presentations to big conferences in quantum physics to a room full of quantum physicists, and explain this whole principle from a quantum physics point of view. And it's totally accurate as far as quantum physics goes, because there's an explanation for how all that happens within the body and within the circuitries, and how it happens in all of manifestation, all of living manifestation. And in other words, I actually teach the philosophy of the science of BodyTalk, and the science of the human body. And the thing is, these days, I actually have more followers and more colleagues working with me who are physicists and scientists than I have, medical practitioners and things like that, although I have a lot of them as well.
Oh, I love quantum physics. It's like the bridge between science and spirituality.
Yeah, well, my background is I'm basically have done extensive studies on Eastern philosophy, particularly Advaita Vedanta. But what I discovered is that when I also studied quantum physics, they were just one and the same thing. And that's why Niels Bohr and Heisenberg and all them, they used to go to India to get their clues, because most of the laws of quantum physics are standard laws that have been taught in Advaita Vedanta for 3,000 or 4,000 years. Mm-hmm. And I bridged the gap between the two because I've studied both quantum physics and the philosophy. And it's that background that enabled me then to develop the BodyTalk system, much more than my medical background.
Isn't that fascinating? Well, and I think the fact that, your spiritual practices are important to you in meditation, I think that is such an important component. For me, that's when I'm running around looking for the answers outside of myself, sometimes I have to remind myself to sit down, get quiet, be still, and listen to the still small voice within. And instead of giving my power away, thinking it's outside of me. And I think that's what was really wonderful about the whole BodyTalk appointments, in that it's like we're both trying to listen to that still small voice that has the answers, and we have to ask those questions before we can hear the answers, otherwise there's no context for understanding them.
Yeah. And if you can get deep enough and understand the message clear enough without all the filters that we have, our attitudes and belief systems, then there's no limit to what can be done as far as healing goes.
So exciting. So, Dr. John, perhaps there's someone listening to us today that's wondering if their body is talking to them, if it has something that it wants them to know. How would they know if that was the case or not? Is there anything we can look at here or ask or do right now to determine if there's something our bodies want us to know?
Well, it's one thing to say, yes, well, if you're in conflict, it's trying to tell you something. But then as far as the secrets of it, as to trying to understand it, you tend to have to learn. I mean, that's what we do. For example, my Finding Health course that I told you about with conflict and everything, they don't have to do a seminar on that. I've actually released that as a DVD. It's like a 10-hour DVD course, which can be purchased on my site. And during that time, I explain all the concepts around living in a more healthy way by understanding the nature of conflict, understanding the nature of intuition, and developing your consciousness and how to make your intuitive knowledge more accurate and to be able to rely on it, and sort of the philosophical understandings. And it's designed for the intelligent layperson as well as practitioners. And but it does help a lot because, unfortunately, you can't put it into a soundbite. You need to have at least a few hours to explain it. But yes, conflict is the best state that something is happening. And sometimes there are only minor conflicts and you're not worried about it and they pass. But if not, it's better to either go to a practitioner who understands this type of work, such as BodyTalk or a psychologist or whatever, or learn how to do it yourself.
Absolutely. I think it's true. So yeah, it's about taking a different stance, and when the conflict or issues or challenges come up, go, oh, this is wonderful. Wonder what I'm supposed to learn next. It's a very different stance, and I like it.
Yep.
It's really
Sorry
exciting.
About the noise. I'm in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and I haven't heard a helicopter like this before, but maybe they're looking for me.
It seems like several of them are. You're a popular guy, and I understand why. I want to kind of find you myself.
Yeah,
So when are you coming back to the States? I know BodyTalk here in the States is based out of, is it Florida?
We have a headquarters in Florida. We also have a European headquarters in Germany and one in Australia. But so we've got 3 headquarters, but the main headquarters is in Florida. And we have a big staff and everything there. But I will be touring the States, I think, I don't know, maybe May. I never look at my schedule until I get up in the morning.
Yeah, it's good to be present in the moment. I think it makes it less stress.
South Africa tomorrow. I think we've been to around 60 countries in the last 10 years.
Well, you do seem rather relaxed considering that crazy schedule yours, so you must be doing something right.
Well, right now I'm in Brazil for a month to do nothing else but relax and finish writing my next book.
Oh, is that right? When is the release date on that?
Towards the end of the year. Yeah, it's a new paperback book to explain all the philosophy and science of body talk to the intelligent layperson.
I'm going to want a copy of that. Maybe we'll get you back on the show when that comes out.
We'll let you know.
Absolutely. So I think you touched on this a little bit earlier, but maybe somebody's listening now and they're like, I'd really like to find a practitioner in my area. How would they go about doing that?
Again, our website, we have a list of all the practitioners throughout the world. So when you go on there and you look for practitioner, it'll tell you to name your country or your state. And when you press search, you'll see a list of all the practitioners. And they're the ones that are, we've trained many more people than that, but these are the ones listed on our site are the people who have done the exams to certify themselves that they know what they're talking about. Mm-hmm.
And if someone's interested in learning about becoming a practitioner or learn techniques to treat themselves and their families, is that information on the site as well?
Again, there's courses, and the course they'd be interested in that is called the Access course, as in getting access to BodyTalk. And it's usually a one-day course. It's just a 6-hour course. And just a nominal fee. It's like $100 US, I think.
Wow. And where are those taught?
They're taught all over the world. All over the world. On any given weekend, there's going to be a couple of hundred taught. But you can look to see where local ones are near you, or you can contact the office directly and tell them where you live. And, if you've got a group of people that are interested, then we can arrange for one of the local access teachers to be able to teach it. It's a very popular system. We've got it going into schools and, into workplaces and things like that now, where people, they're using that in the workplace to make a huge difference in performance. And companies are finding they're saving a fortune in health bills and absenteeism and things like that because their staff are just so more relaxed.
Yeah, I'm very interested in taking this course myself. And I see that you've got BodyTalk Module 1 through 9 and Animal Talk. To get beyond access, does somebody need to be a chiropractor or a healthcare professional?
Yeah. Anyone can do BodyTalk, but if you eventually want to practice professionally, you've got to do all the courses in so much as it's a longer program because you have to then, we can arrange it, but you'd also have to do some, the anatomy and physiology and things like that as well. But we have plenty of lay people who have started out just as lay people, but they will finish with full certification and very soon a university degree from it.
That's fantastic. I wasn't aware of that. So if somebody's really interested in this, they could just do the entire course and become certified.
Yeah.
And okay,
But they don't have
so
to do it on campus. They can actually do it in the form of modules, and that is when they're taught near them. They go for a weekend or sometimes 4 days, and periodically, and then they do online courses and online tutorials, and they can actually, in their own time, as a part-time course, end up even before the degree. There's a certification before that, which is an advanced certification, as we call it, which would make them a very competent practitioner, and then the degree level takes them to more or less almost a specialist of BodyTalk, as it were.
And if somebody was interested in that, approximately how long would it take to do that from start to finish?
Well, if they're willing to work fairly hard, the certification course would probably take 2 years, and the degree course about 3.5.
That's not unreasonable at all.
No, and if you're good at what you do and you've got the personality to go with it, where our BodyTalkers often are working on waiting lists, they're so busy.
Wow. Yeah, that's an incredible opportunity. I wasn't aware that was the case. I'm familiar with another, I don't know if you've heard of NAET. It's also kind of an applied kinesiology. Yeah, and they're only able to certify, I think, chiropractors and acupuncturists and such.
A lot of them are techniques, per se. This is a profession in its own right, so you can learn it from scratch. But if you're already a professional, for example, doctors and people like that, they are also training with us, and they often will train through our German university, and they do it as a master's degree, and they can do a 2-year master's degree and get the full qualifications, and they can do it part-time, and it works out well. We have a lot of people doing that in Europe, but you can do it even from anywhere in the world because, as I said, it's just a matter of putting the modalities together.
Wow.
Together, but it is. Yeah, it's a profession. It's not a technique, or a modality. But in the early stages, there are techniques that I have released that can be taught in the public. And that's what we do with Access because, like I said, my probably number one goal has always been, right from the word go, is looking for ways to empower my patients to be able to help themselves and to take care of all the little stuff and be able to enhance their life and reduce their stresses. And then hopefully the rare times they have serious conditions, that's when they go to, the professional practitioners.
Well, and again, yes, it's having different teachers, different tools in the toolbox. Again, apples and oranges and bananas. It's not all just, this is the only thing, this is the only way. But I love about what you teach in this technique, it's about empowering people. But sometimes we need other types of support. But I think this is such an important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. The protocol in my system where you follow this protocol includes a protocol that will take you to other modalities. So it will actually tell you what other modality you need to go to. And you can even use intuition to pick the practitioner, And because, I don't claim to have solutions for everything. And there are times when you need BodyTalk, but you also need a good counselor or you need some advice on nutrition and things like that. And occasionally we have psychologists who are BodyTalkers and we have nutritionists who are BodyTalkers, so they can do that as well. But, it's a profession that is very open to working with other professions, but we make sure that it is warranted. In other words, that's what the body wants.
Yes. It's a very cooperative. It seems It's not competitive.
Not at all. Not at all.
Well, this has just been a joy and a pleasure and a privilege, and I still feel like I want to know more. But I guess that's why I want to go take a class. Yeah,
and on our website, I've got quite a few DVDs explaining various things, and we've got a lot of information for the public. And as I said, if they're from the Finding Health point of view and the sort of the themes that we've been talking about, I think that that course I've got on Finding Health would probably be the best way for people to go because it's going to teach them a great deal about how their life works and how, the whole interaction of dynamics between themselves and the people around them, what I call the family matrix and society matrix, etc., how that all interacts and what we can do to enhance that and work with it rather than struggle against it.
And I talk about that all the time. It's really nice when we can learn to go with the flow rather than, struggle against the tide. I think Abraham Hicks talks about that. Just there's nothing you want upstream. You want to kind of go with the flow. Life will take you where you want to be. There's nothing up there. You don't have to fight with it.
It's a habit people get into.
Yes.
I'm reminded if you're getting in a lift in New York, Empire State Building, and you're going up all those floors, you'll see someone get in the lift and they run on the spot all the way up. And when they get to the top, they say, "Oh, thank God I got here. I had to do all that work to get here." When in fact, all they had to do was stand there.
Grace and ease, that's exactly the way I like to live. Be carried on the wave. Grace and ease.
Yeah, but so many people are running when they can be walking.
Yeah. I get that. I used to be one of those people, and it sounds like you might have been as well.
Yeah, but we were doing good,
Well, it got us to where we're at, so we did something right, huh?
Yes, I know. Physician, heal thyself first. I say that all the time, but it was only until I got really ill that I started to understand what that really meant.
Yes, we talk about that a lot. Take the mote out of your eye before worrying about the splinter in your brother's, and it's kind of the same thing. Let's take responsibility for living our best life, and then we can really be of support and guide others to do the same. Mm-hmm. Well, Dr. Veltheim, this has been just an honor and just so much fun to connect with you. And when your book's out, I'd really love to feature you again. So to my listeners, thank you for hanging out with us. I know you got some value from this. Go to BodyTalk.com for more information. Maybe I'll see you at an Access class. That would be great, huh? Thank you, Brent Carey. Just love to hear from you. If you want to be on the show, if you have questions, write to me at tammibphd@gmail.com. So take care of yourself. Get on that wave. Onward and upward. Bye for now.